It started with one post, one photo. 45 minutes later, the Indiana Fever were thrown into absolute chaos. What was meant to be an innocent image, a smiling coach surrounded by 6 players, became the biggest social media disaster in WNBA history. Within minutes, screenshots were flying across Reddit, Twitter, and TikTok. Fans zoomed in circle faces and asked a question that froze every front office executive in the league. Did they just leak their expansion protection list? And by the time the team realized, it was too late. The damage was already irreversible. The post vanished, but not fast enough. Every second it stayed up gave fans, agents, and rival franchises a perfect window into Indiana's most guarded secret, their strategy for the upcoming WNBA expansion draft. The timing was catastrophic. Just months after Caitlin Clark's record-breaking rookie debut had sent ratings soaring and ticket sales through the roof, the team's front office now faced a nightmare scenario of losing that momentum in a single digital misstep. Phones went dark. Comments were turned off. Inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse, panic spread like wildfire. This wasn't just a glitch. It was a self-inflicted wound that left Indiana's future exposed to the world. As news broke, sports analysts compared it to one of the biggest blunders in women's basketball history, the infamous 2017 Elena Del Don trade that haunted a franchise for years. Now, the Fever found themselves on the same track, not from bad negotiation, but from carelessness. Every second of silence from the team made it worse. The absence of answers became its own headline, and speculation filled the void. The league offices in New York reportedly called Indiana executives within hours. Social media passwords were revoked, posts archived, and communication channels restricted. The Fever's marketing team, once praised for creative engagement, suddenly found itself under investigation for one of the most consequential leaks in WNBA history. And as November 25th's protection deadline loomed, the question on everyone's mind wasn't what happened. It was who would pay the price. The Indiana Fever were in full-blown crisis mode, and the rest of the league was watching. This couldn't have happened at a worse time. Caitlin Clark had transformed the Fever into the heartbeat of the WNBA. Her games drew millions, her jerseys shattered records, and her presence redefined what women's basketball could be. And yet, at the height of that success, Indiana stumbled into disaster. The Golden State Valkyries, the new expansion franchise set to debut in 2026, suddenly had insider knowledge that could shape their entire future. In one moment, the balance of power in women's basketball shifted, and Indiana had no one to blame but themselves. When fans dissected the now-deleted photo, the truth became impossible to ignore. There weren't 7 players. There weren't 8. There were 6, exactly the number allowed to be protected in the WNBA expansion draft. Front and center stood Caitlin Clark, flanked by Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, Nalissa Smith, and Temi Fagbennel. That lineup told a story without words, a strategy, a hierarchy, and a glaring omission that fans noticed instantly. Because missing from that photo was Grace Berger, the young guard everyone expected to be untouchable. The internet erupted within seconds. "Where's Berger?" one fan tweeted. "They really left her unprotected?" another replied. The thread spiraled, pulling in journalists, analysts, and even rival players. Grace Berger, a rising star and one of Clark's closest on-court allies, was nowhere to be found in the team's accidental image. For a franchise built on youth and chemistry, the message was confusing. Why risk losing one of their most promising pieces? The post might have been deleted, but the questions it raised couldn't be erased. In one misstep, Indiana revealed exactly who they valued most and least. The front office scrambled to control the narrative, but screenshots don't disappear. The image was already circulating across major outlets. By the next morning, hashtag Save Grace Berger was trending nationwide. Fans flooded the team's mentions with demands for answers, while analysts on ESPN and The Athletic began publishing full breakdowns of what the 6-player lineup implied. It was no longer a rumor. It was a crisis, a visual confirmation that Indiana had made its choices. And not everyone agreed with them. Inside the Fever locker room, the silence said more than any press release ever could. In a season that had finally pulled Indiana out of obscurity, the timing of this disaster was brutal. After years of losing seasons, the Fever were finally on the rise. Ticket sales up 300%, attendance soaring 67%, and TV ratings higher than ever. Caitlin Clark had given the team new life, but now the organization's credibility was cracking under pressure. Could the same franchise that rebuilt its brand overnight lose it all over one careless photo? That's the question haunting Fever fans as November's deadline inches closer. And at the center of it all stands Grace Berger, the name that refused to fade. Her exclusion from the protected list wasn't just a tactical mistake. It was emotional. For fans, Berger symbolized a future. Young, loyal, efficient, and full potential. She shot 44% from three, averaged nearly 10 points in limited minutes, and played with the poise of a veteran. Losing her wouldn't just hurt the Fever's roster. It would sting their identity, because in a league built on loyalty and empowerment, leaving Berger vulnerable felt like betrayal disguised as strategy. Inside the league's front offices, executives couldn't believe what they were seeing. One anonymous source reportedly said, "If Indiana leaves Berger unprotected, the Valkyries are already popping champagne." It wasn't just speculation, it was near certainty. At 24, Berger fit perfectly into the Golden State Valkyries' vision, a versatile, sharpshooting guard who could anchor their young roster. The Fever's mistake had effectively handed their competition a franchise cornerstone on a silver platter. And with Golden State's analytics team already prepping, it felt like the heist of the decade had just been made effortless. Grace Berger supporters weren't just upset, they were mobilized. Within 6 hours, a Change.org petition titled Save Grace Berger hit 15,000 signatures. Local sports radio hosts ran emergency segments. Even Caitlin Clark's father posted a cryptic tweet reading, "Moments of interest in Indy. Trust the process." The tweet was deleted, but not before it racked up over 100,000 likes. Whether intentional or not, it added fuel to the fire. The message was clear. The locker room wasn't just tense. It was divided. What started as an accident had evolved into a full-blown fracture in team trust. Nalissa Smith's inclusion on the protected list raised even more eyebrows. Statistically, Smith was solid, 12 points, 7 rebounds per game, but off-court issues made her protection controversial. Months earlier, a viral TikTok eye poke incident during practice had created friction among teammates. Multiple reports described locker room tension, player consultations, and disciplinary measures that cost the Fever valuable playoff time. Protecting Smith over Berger wasn't just strategic, it was symbolic. It told fans who the front office trusted despite controversy. And in the court of public opinion, that decision sparked outrage. Behind the scenes, whispers spread of deeper internal conflict. Coaches reportedly held private meetings to address the growing discomfort within the roster. Veteran players allegedly questioned why a suspended player was protected, while a rookie cornerstone was left dangling. Sports psychologists described the emotional toll of such exposure, being publicly deemed expendable before the season even began. The team wasn't just battling for roster security anymore. They were fighting for unity, reputation, and stability in a league suddenly obsessed with Indiana's every move. Meanwhile, Golden State was silently smiling. The Valkyries, backed by Silicon Valley investors, weren't just another team, they were a statement. A $122 million franchise with a $50 million initial investment, a new arena in Oakland, and a front office stacked with former Golden State Warriors executives. They had the resources, the vision, and now, thanks to Indiana's leak, the roadmap. Their scouting department had been preparing for months, and the Fever had unknowingly handed them the perfect cheat sheet. 6 names to avoid, and dozens of unprotected players ripe for selection. The Valkyries analytics department, insiders say, has been working around the clock since the leak. Their system blends advanced stats, AI scouting data, and contract analysis to identify undervalued players, the kind Berger perfectly embodies. They're salivating, one league executive said bluntly, and it's easy to see why. A sharpshooting, defensively solid guard on a rookie contract is the type of asset every expansion team dreams of. The Fever's mistake didn't just hurt themselves. It might have jump-started the next WNBA dynasty before the Valkyries even stepped onto the court. For Indiana, the ripple effects were immediate. The team's championship odds dropped overnight, falling from plus 800 to over plus 1,800 on Vegas sportsbooks. Merchandise partners began holding emergency calls. Sponsors grew anxious about brand stability. Even local businesses near Gainbridge Fieldhouse reported nervous chatter among investors. The Fever, who had finally restored hope to Indiana basketball, now faced the possibility of seeing that momentum collapse under scrutiny. Every hour the franchise stayed silent, the louder the noise grew, and every unanswered question felt like a countdown to disaster. From the outside, it might seem like a simple PR mistake, but within the Fever organization, the psychological shock was far deeper. Training sessions grew quiet. Players avoided eye contact. Social media accounts went dark. The front office implemented strict no-phone rules inside facilities. The leak didn't just reveal a list. It exposed a culture of vulnerability. Players began to feel like data points rather than people. And in a league where empowerment is everything, that emotional fracture could prove even more damaging than any roster loss. The parallels to history are impossible to ignore. Analysts pointed to the 2009 Detroit Shock, who imploded after the dispersal draft that broke apart their championship core. A single moment of instability cost them years of success. The Fever now faced the same precipice, a single decision that could unravel their rebuild. If Grace Berger ends up in Golden State and blossoms into a star, this moment will go down as one of the greatest front office failures in WNBA history. The line between triumph and tragedy in professional sports has never looked thinner. But some insiders believe this isn't the full story. Reports hint at possible misdirection, a deliberate decoy to throw other teams off. Could the Fever have used this leak as a smokescreen for an even bigger move? Sources suggest potential three-team trades involving European prospects, and unsigned draft rights are on the table. International players, currently competing overseas, could dramatically reshape Indiana's strategy at the last minute. It's the kind of twist that keeps agents awake at night and turns every refresh of social media into a potential bombshell. The Golden State Valkyries, meanwhile, continue their silent war room sessions. Former NBA executives have been seen flying between San Francisco and New York, finalizing analytic reports on every unprotected player. Their goal is clear: build a championship contender overnight. With $5.7 million in free salary space and an impending cap increase expected from the NBA's new TV deal, they're uniquely positioned to absorb multiple rising stars. In a single offseason, they could transform from an idea into a powerhouse, all thanks to a single photograph Indiana wishes it could erase. The fan response has been both electric and divided. Some call the Fever's leaked lineup a betrayal. Others defend it as strategic misdirection. But one thing is certain: the drama has reignited national interest in the WNBA offseason like never before. On TikTok alone, Fever-related videos surpassed 50 million views in just 24 hours. Talk shows, analysts, and former players weighed in. The Fever had become more than a team. They were a spectacle, a cautionary tale of how one careless click could shake an entire sports league to its core. Even corporate sponsors began to feel the tremors. A major healthcare organization, one of the Fever's biggest backers, reportedly called an emergency meeting with executives to review performance stability clauses. These contracts, worth millions annually, depend on team reputation and continuity. Any disruption, they warned, could trigger renegotiations. For a team already navigating emotional fallout and fan unrest, losing sponsorship support would be catastrophic. Indiana's business ecosystem, from merchandise vendors to local restaurants, suddenly found itself entangled in the consequences of a 45-minute social media post. Maria Rodriguez, who owns a restaurant just blocks from Gainbridge Fieldhouse, captured the mood perfectly. "We build our business around Fever home games," she said. "When they win, we thrive. When they lose players, we lose customers." Her sentiment echoed throughout Indianapolis, a reminder that in modern sports, every roster decision carries a ripple effect far beyond the court. What was once a tight-knit community celebrating a rising team now feels like a city holding its breath, waiting for someone to fix a mistake that can't be undone. Behind closed doors, the Fever's PR department is working around the clock. Focus groups with season ticket holders, fan surveys, and closed-door crisis meetings are all underway. Sources inside the organization describe it as a pressure cooker. Employees have had phones confiscated, new approval systems have been implemented, and even cafeteria conversations are being monitored to prevent further leaks. For players and staff, the environment feels suffocating, a constant reminder of how fragile success can be when technology and timing collide in the worst possible way. As the deadline approaches, one question hangs over everything. Was the post truly an accident? Some believe the leak was intentional, a marketing stunt gone wrong, or an elaborate ploy to gauge public reaction. The timing, the clarity of the image, the speed of deletion, it all feels too convenient. If it was deliberate, it backfired spectacularly. If it wasn't, it may go down as the costliest mistake in franchise history. Either way, the Fever's silence is deafening, and the basketball world refuses to move on without answers. For the WNBA, this scandal is about more than one team. It's a wake-up call about how intertwined sports, social media, and business have become. A single image, shared too soon, can alter the trajectory of careers, brands, and legacies. The Fever's crisis is being studied not just by coaches and analysts, but by corporate sponsors, psychologists, and digital security firms. Everyone wants to know, how could a team at its peak lose control so completely? The answers may redefine how every franchise handles information from this day forward. At the intersection of chaos and opportunity stands Caitlin Clark, the rookie phenom whose star power transformed the WNBA overnight. Now finds herself leading a franchise on the edge of implosion. Her presence alone has doubled TV ratings and tripled ticket sales, yet even she can't silence the noise. As reporters camp outside the Fever facility and speculation spreads, Clark remains composed, but the weight of expectation is immense. For the first time since her arrival, the question isn't about her scoring. It's about whether she can hold this fractured team together. Every league insider agrees on one thing. The next 48 hours will define Indiana's future. Whether they stick to the leak list, make a shocking trade, or pull off a late-night twist, the repercussions will echo across women's basketball for years. The Golden State Valkyries are waiting. The fans are watching. The sponsors are listening. And the Fever, once a beacon of hope for a new WNBA era, now stand at the edge of a cliff, one wrong move away from losing everything they built. The countdown to chaos has officially begun.